Welcome back everybody. In today's episode of Us Remake, I'm trying to recreate a couple of really interesting art styles I found on Pinterest. These art styles have a unique look and I'm going to break down exactly how you can achieve them step by step. Before we jump in, make sure to like the video and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow, and if there's any other art styles you want me to try next, make sure to leave a comment down below. And alright, let's get into it. For the first art style, starting in, I dragged in a photo. You can use whatever photo you want. I started masking it using the pen tool, and then I added a new layer, made it a clipping mask and fill it with black. I lowered the opacity and started adding a couple of details over the overall shape. Then I adjusted the shape a little bit by painting black over the silhouette. After doing that, I gave those details a little bit of blur so they can have smoother transition and fade off better. Next, I masked the lower tip so it could be sharper towards the bottom. Once again, I decreased the opacity and added more details around the ear, masking them using the softer brush. Then I added color on the side to create some rim light and gave it a blur as well. I started the main coloring by adding multiple colors on top of each other, then I liquefied them to give them a more interesting shape. After that, I applied motion blur so the colors blend better towards the middle. I duplicated the layer and added the Gaussian blur to give us a bit of glow, masking it towards the bottom. Then I added the blue color, applied the Gaussian blur again and liquefied to create a more interesting shape. I duplicated the layer once more and applied motion blur to enhance the look. After that, I added more color to create a glassy effect. I introduced sharper highlights and color variation to simulate refraction so it resembled glass more closely. I added some color and smudged them using the smudge tool. Then apply a bit of noise. After that, I added small refraction here and there to make it more interesting. I smudged toward the edges to give them a more appealing look. Then resized the character and added more colors to create glow effects using motion blur and Gaussian blur. Using a clipping mask, I added a rim light and inner glows towards the edges, making sure to keep them only where the lights will naturally hit. I also added subtle glows and white reflections with sharper edges to make them more eye-catching. And for the final adjustment, I added light refraction on the side to make the character look more glossy and reflexive. I decreased the opacity, then liquefied the shape and duplicated the layer to add chromatic aberration for extra detail. After that, I used the filter gallery, accented edges to make everything appear more glossy, masking it only where I wanted it. Using Camera Raw, I boosted the sharpness and adjusted the colors. I went for a slightly retro look by washing the colors and softening the contrast. I liquefied again to simplify the shape. I added more glows using Screen Blender mode and refined everything with another liquefy pass. Finally, I adjusted the colors using solid color layers with overlay blending mode, added the reflections and did one last liquefy for the final touch-up. And this is the final result. Hopefully you like it. And now let's move on to the next art style. Moving on to the next art style, I started by dragging in a photo, then I desaturated to black and white. I masked this out, added a black background layer and used Camera Raw to boost texture, contrast and sharpness. Then I went into blending option and split the whites to keep mostly the edges. After that I inverted the image using the Ctrl E command on the keyboard. Next I applied the oil paint filter to smooth the image and duplicated the image and started removing some detail from the face, masking out certain areas. I added an inner glow with a bluish purplish tone to give it a more cosmic look. Now for building the galaxy look, I added an image and used it as a mask and applied blending modes like a hard mix to create interesting textures. I duplicated and placed it in different positions to fill the shape. Using a solid brush with scattering, I painted the highlights to intensify the lighting. You can paint depending on your preference. I reselected the face and added more details to the eyes to make them glow more. I also added details to the nose bridge for depth. Then I applied bits of oil paints again to soften the image and used black to clean up the unwanted details. I added Gaussian blur for the glow, depending on how dreamy I want the result to be. And now for the final touch-ups and effects, I went back to Camera Raw filter to boost the sharpness and make the stars more impactful. Then I used Liquify to adjust the shape and clean up the face. I boosted the glows around the eyes and highlights. And then I added the bokeh effects using the blur gallery I set to screen to enhance the glow. For color grading, I used color lookup like a sunset tone, lowered the opacity and add some color variation. I adjusted the contrast, added particles and kept tweaking colors until I liked the results. Then I liquefy it slightly again and apply another color preset at lower opacity. To fix artifacts, I painted over them with solid colors, then reapplied them. Now for the final details, I added the star overlay and kept it mostly in the background. Then I boosted the brightness temporarily to find imperfection and fix them. I duplicated the character to add more details to the face like nose and lips, lowering opacity and masking it. I added glow to the mouth to make it appear like there is lights coming from the inside. Then I created light rays using some simple lines, masked them and blurring them, and then I duplicated them and recolored the rays. I applied Gaussian blur and used motion blur to create variation. Finally, I smoothed the face out with the smudge tool, enhanced the highlights, and did some final color adjusting. And this is the final result. Hopefully you all enjoyed the video. Make sure to leave a comment down below and have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next video.